I wanted to make this very, very clear that just trying to get everybody on board. After 8 years being in this equity, being in the general stock market, I have decided to essentially sell my shares completely. It's getting pretty nervous out there. I got out of the stock market after 8 years. I believe the markets are getting overheated. I believe that if you look, even though despite the fact that you have very high earnings, even though despite the fact that there may be some bullish indicators, there's a lot of indicators that show that it's time to get out of the stock market. The price earnings ratio for the NASDAQ, Dow Jones is pretty darn high. We are seeing many companies have PE ratios of well above 50, 100, God knows what. The fact of the matter is that, yes, it is true that there has been ongoing fiscal support, spending, stimulus, and all that. We're seeing a lot of that slow down. And every time when we see that slow down, we see a bearish indicator for the market. And when we see a lot of that spending, it's a bullish indicator for the market. Now, a lot of you are very critical of deficit spending. I really do see that deficit spending, in a way, is a way to pump and juice up the GDP and the overall economic activity. So as you know, the eviction moratoriums, the forbearance, the unemployment checks, the stimulus, they are officially going to be slowing down. That's what the situation that we are in right now. And the markets went up. A lot of people think, well, we're not going to really have a correction. We're recovering from the Monday sell-off. I'm still looking into how the Delta situation is going to be looking very, very soon. The fact of the matter is that when we look at oil prices, they are tumbling down. Gold prices, they've not hit $2,000. I do see more corrections with that very, very soon. So this debunks the whole dollar collapse. Gold is going to go to God knows when. Cryptos is nowhere near its all-time highs. And bond yields, which have recovered, believe it or not, in the last couple of days, they have taken a dive. And I believe there's a good possibility that bond yields are going to continue to go down even further. And we can see, essentially, I believe, the 10-year note go below 10%. Now, bond yields are very important because, keep in mind, because a lot of people were forecasting the bonds rates to just go up. I was telling you I had a good feeling that it was going to go up. I wasn't sure about it because I told you that if the bond yields go up, it's going to cripple the real estate market. Because as you know, the mortgage rates heavily impact the real estate market. The mortgage rates are heavily tied with the bond markets. And if the bond yields continue to go down, it's very likely that mortgage rates will continue to fall or at least not go up. And what does this really mean for the real estate market? What that means, essentially, is it is going to create more credit, more buying power on real estate. Because now when your mortgage rates go up, you have these very low or no down payments. You can basically borrow more credit, and that is going to provide upward pressure on real estate. Now, do I think real estate prices are going to continue to surge like the way they have been having for the last few months? I don't think so, because we're seeing that the forbearance is ending. We're seeing more listings in the market. We're seeing more construction, which is going to create a glut of supply. Lumber prices have certainly fallen. And by the way, one good contrarian indicator to the stock market is you can probably look at Jim Cramer. Jim Cramer has a horrible track record when it comes to the stock market. And I've interviewed one of his pals, actually, well, one of the people in CNBC telling me about that. Then again, he's the one that told us to buy Bear Stearns in 2008. And he's saying, well, the markets are looking pretty bullish. And another contrarian indicator is Peter Schiff. Now, Peter Schiff is saying, well, the markets are going to crash. But again, if you listen to him every single time, he would have been wrong the majority of the time. And he's certainly wrong about gold. He's certainly wrong a lot of times about crypto. Both of them, I believe, are just now mentioning that crypto is going to crash, which I guess you can say based on their track records, you're not supposed to listen to them. Yeah, they're printing money, they're printing money, they're printing money. Yes, that does create some bearish sentiment in the US dollar, but we're not seeing a dollar collapse. And the main reason why you're seeing rising prices is not simply due to all the spending. There's a lot of other factors that come into play. Now, do I like the current administration? Absolutely not. Do I think he's solely responsible for it? No. Okay, it's important to know how to direct your anger and frustration. Now, I was reading this article from CNBC, and they mentioned how the COVID recession only lasted for 2 months. Now, yeah, if you're an investor like me, we had a COVID recession for 2 months. But for the average person who's seen their businesses wiped down, some people who have not gotten unemployment, it's really, when you think about it, a depression. The fact is that when you get rid of unemployment, the stimulus, the forbearance, the moratoriums, all these different things, when you think about it, we're really a depression, plus all these very, very low interest rates. And by the way, I want to make this very clear that if the vaccines, if they're going to cause the problems, and I'm not saying they are, but what I've been hearing, and if this results in, well, I'm not going to go further. All I can say is population. If it happens, are we going to see less economic activity? Is that going to be very bearish for the stock market? Because if that is, I don't think we can see these bull runs like we've been seeing for years and decades anytime soon. And by the way, it's so ironic because Fauci just mentioned recently that if you are vaccinated, you should still wear the mask. So I thought the vaccines, along with the CDC, were not supposed to wear masks. It was to prevent you from getting COVID. So which is it? You see how they're just conflicting with one way or another? They're really starting to choke. That's what I think about it. Now, closer to home, we're going to be talking about MGM Resorts, which, they admit that they changed the laws. They're now pressuring, they're pushing people with the power of Jim Murren, who they control, who they pumped, along with Sandoval and all these other politicians, that they're going to pressure their employees to get vaccinated. We knew this was all coming, and we knew that the Culinary Union are nothing but pawns to support their agenda, to support their laws, to support their politicians. That's the way it is. And the question is, how is there going to be demand for all tourism when all these things are breaking out, when all these restrictions are going to be coming back? Remember, Murren is the guy who sold company stock. We don't know what Sizzle did with the October 1 relief money. We know that he heavily profited from the pandemic. We know when I tell these politicians about why so, they just run away. So that further proves that this is true. And the fact is that this is simply ruining the tourism economy. And you could see how the county commissioners were behaving about 24 hours ago during the meeting, how they were pushing around a lot of their speakers. And I believe that they're going to continue to increase a lot of their mandates. It's just simply a step-by-step process. Now, keep in mind that the groups who are pushing all this nonsense, the Southern Nevada Health Authority, the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce, remember, they block people on Twitter for spreading the truth. Think about it. So when this all comes around, when we see exactly what's going on, we're going to be looking, we're going to be realizing and thinking, well, hey, if the vaccines are not as effective, then why should we listen to these organizations? And we should probably hold these groups all accountable. Now, the thing is, they are panicking, the commission, the elected officials across the state of Nevada, because they thought that a lot of Nevadans were going to be buying along with this. The vaccination rate is lower than the national average at 40%. And it's funny how a lot of these people are blaming Trump supporters. But if Trump supporters had so much power in Clark County, shouldn't we have had more Trump-backed county commissioners? Shouldn't our county be more red? So it really proves that the vaccination rate and what the people want does not reflect what the corporations and the governments are really doing. And as a result of all these restrictions, we're seeing that the conventions are canceling, postponing their plans. They're not coming here like they used to. And this makes me think, well, do these people really care about business? It makes you believe that the truth of what's going on, I don't really care they make about money. They're doing this to control. They're doing this to essentially run our lives. The way I see it, the deep state has hijacked the casino elites, the politicians, the unions. They set up these non-governmental organizations to control us, to carry on their global agendas. And it's not looking too well for them. I heard an article that a lot of Sizzlack staffers have resigned. Maybe this is a sign to see what's really, really going on. They're doing this all for control. There's just absolutely no question about it. I feel like they care more about that than actually money making and the well-being of their tourists and their employees. If you've heard just recently, the Fontainebleau, they decided that they're going to reopen finally in 2022, but they have no details, or 23, excuse me, on whether that they're going to resume construction on the former Fontainebleau, which is now the Drew Hotel, owned by the Koch brothers and Marriott. There's no evidence on whether this is going to be successful. It can be, but if the conventions don't return, God forbid, and plus I've talked about the vaccines, the pilots, all that, we'll have to really, really see. I see it before I believe it. The fact of the matter is that you are really, really starting to see that, a lot of this is really going to scare a lot of businesses away, because they just don't really care. And going to all this, we're seeing a lot of these bombshells. We're seeing a lot of these truth situations really revealed, such as the Arizona audit. There's reports now that show that there was fraud, that there are signs they're going to decertify the election or do a redo election. There is signs that this eventually is going to result in other states auditing. I believe really Nevada is coming very, very soon. And when we see that Clark County getting audited, this is going to prove that not only there was cheating against the president level, but there was cheating in the county commission level. Because why don't you think that we don't have real representation in the county level that's reflecting the people? Because remember, Trump talked about how they have to do a redo election for essentially Stavros Anthony and Ross Miller, but then they certified it. So maybe the audit is going to show that there was cheating going on. And not only that, but when all the vaccines and everything show up and proves that this has just been a giant failure, then maybe we can show and prove that we need to overthrow these people. We need to hold them accountable, possibly put them in jail. And not only that, but we need to restructure Clark County for good. Because that's what's really the problem. The one county monopoly, the lack of city governments within the Las Vegas Valley. We essentially have one county commissioner for every 400,000 people. We need to break it up. It's not working too well. And speaking of county, we just so much shenanigans and so much fluff and BS when it came to the Clark County GOP. In case if you haven't wondered, there was so many cop cars in front of the meeting in a high school. They were blocking candidates, yes, candidates and other people from coming into the building. It's become a freak show. It really is. And to be honest with you, I don't trust either side. I think they're all in it for their own. I don't really think they really care about getting things done in the state. It's a freak show. And by the way, considering the fact that there's many policy issues I don't agree with the Republicans, but at least they're more saner than the Democrats as it is right now. Yeah. So what's going to happen? Who's going to really win? And then, of course, they haven't announced the true winner of the Clark County GOP chair. We know that they were very useless when it comes to activism, getting things done, raising money for candidates. And this really just to show you another reason why we should break up the county. Because we have one large central control, more county control. Many other metro areas have multiple counties. So you can essentially have a balance of power. One person has more influence. And this is going to happen as a result if you split up the counties. It's very, very simple. And in fact, there's a lot of polls that show that an increasing number of Americans, whether they're Southern Republicans or West Coast Democrats, They want to secede. They want to break up. And I think this is a solution very, very clearly, especially with the immigration crisis that we have now that just came back in the last few months. So anyway, you let me know what you think. I really think the Clark County Republican Party is really insane. And that's why I believe we need to form alternative movements, which are nonpartisan, to basically get things done. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Hope to hear from you again.